Thank you so much. I'm just thrilled to be here today. And really, I want to start by saying that this is really going to be an open discussion. I'm only going to talk for a few minutes because I think that you all are the experts on this issue. I really make no claim to be an expert on sex work issues, even criminalization issues. We at Human Rights Watch, and I'll just say a little bit about Human Rights Watch for people who may not be familiar with it. It's an international human rights organization that we're based in New York. We have researchers in more than 80 countries around the world. We monitor human rights abuses of all kinds, and we hold governments accountable for them. That's basically what we do. And when we work in doing that, we work really closely with groups on the ground who are in the front lines of what these human rights abuses are. And we base our reports on the direct testimony of people who have suffered the human rights abuses. So I'm here today because I've been working closely with Robert and the North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition on issues that have to do with drug users in North Carolina and trying to get more access to sterile syringes for them, just a whole array of human rights issues that are affecting people who use drugs in North Carolina. So he invited me here today to just share in this because in doing some of the work with Robert the last time I was here, I came across an issue that Stella mentioned that really disturbed me, and I decided to make it the focus of my current report, which is what I'm working on now, which is this police practice of using condoms that people are carrying against them in terms of profiling them as sex workers, in terms of using them as basis for arrest, and basically criminalizing condoms. And when that happened to me personally in a conversation with someone out in Durham, I just almost fell through the floor when it actually happened, and a woman said to me, I want a condom, I want some condoms, but I don't want to take too many, because of the cops. And it just hit me like, okay, that's my next report. So I'm wanting you all to know that I'm working on that, and that if anyone has encountered that here and say in the last year or so, it has to be somewhat recent. I would love to interview you about that briefly. It won't take long, just need to get some basic facts about it and hear your story about it while I'm here today. And then we also have some flyers that we brought for people to give out when they do outreach, or to their friends and to your colleagues, that asks people to call us if they've encountered this, because we would like to include Asheville and Durham as some of the cities in a nationwide report that we're going to be doing. Of course, we've encountered this now in it's been going on. We didn't discover it, but we're going to document it in Washington, D.C., in New York, in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, and we would like to include some cities in North Carolina in that if it's happening here as well. And we're going to release the report in the summer before the International AIDS Conference, which is happening in July in D.C., which will also be a great opportunity to spotlight the human rights of sex workers, and a time for sex workers nationally and internationally to gather. And I would really encourage everyone to try to come to the Global Village aspect of that conference, because it's an amazing venue for sex workers and women and drug users and just people who are usually marginalized and not networked and who might feel isolated, to really get an incredible sense of international empowerment. And there's going to be some really neat things happening at the Global Village in DC in July. So we can talk more about that too. So that's my introduction, which is that you all are really the experts in this. I'm going to say a couple of things just to share some knowledge, because that's really what I'm here for, and what Human Rights Watch is here for, is to support you and to be useful to you. So I would love to hear from all of you about how, how Human Rights Watch can help in this. What we've done already is we've done in Health and Human Rights Division, which is where I'm from, we have documented in specific reports human rights abuses against sex workers in Cambodia, in the Philippines, and in India. And we've issued full-length reports on those issues and in those countries, and we have not yet done one for the U.S., which I'm excited to be doing one now from the U.S. for the summer. But in those reports, we talked about criminalization and the harms that affect people, the negative consequences from criminalization for sex workers in those countries, which I think are very similar to the ones that people experience here. I think of it as sort of as three-way criminalization. One, the criminalization laws prohibit the act of prostitution itself. So they prohibit acting. But they also permit people to be harassed and arrested under other laws, such as locating, I call it, which is the loitering laws, the prostitution-free zones. That's just for being somewhere specific. And people are often harassed and arrested for simply where they are. And then thirdly, being, which is what, for being someone who fits a profile as a sex worker. And this, profiling, as you all know, I'm not pretending to tell you anything you don't know, but I think of it as sort of acting, locating, and being. So just for who you are, trans people particularly suffer from profiling, no matter where they are. And the condom issue is part of the profiling issue, so that people will be stopped no matter where they are and asked to put their hands up on a police car, and while the police goes through their purse. And if they find condoms in there, then they will start to be harassed about that and asked why they're carrying so many condoms. And therefore, we're going to keep an eye on you now because we know what you're doing. So the profiling issue is very serious, and really, is permitted by laws that are overly broad, and permit people to be detained and harassed without cause. There's another aspect of criminalization that is the HIV criminalization, and these specific HIV laws that criminalize failure to disclose your status to someone, failure to use condoms while you're engaging in sexual activity if you have HIV. Those laws have also been targeted to people engaging in sex trade, and used to aggravate their sentences disproportionately. In many states, such as California, Colorado, there's a long list of states in which if you're arrested for prostitution and they find out you're HIV positive, your sentence can be up to 10 to 15 years longer because of that, and you're charged under aggravated prostitution charges. And the stories from New Orleans that we all know about the aggravated prostitution charges there, and the requirements to register as a sex offender. Actually in very many states, these HIV criminalization laws are linked to having to register as a sex offender, which pretty much is the death knell for, ever getting a job, for being able to live anywhere. It's seriously, life-destroying stuff. So the whole criminalization regime that surrounds sex in this country and around the world is something that's very problematic from a human rights perspective. And now we've got the issue of the anti-trafficking movement around the world, which, you know, I think we all agree at its core that if there's real trafficking happening, if someone is actually being kidnapped or held under duress, this is a terrible thing, and it's an appropriate activity for law enforcement. But what has built up around this is huge dollars, huge amounts of money going into law enforcement agencies around the world that have already been, for example, to law enforcement agencies that have been documented by Human Rights Watch to perpetrate human rights abuses. So, for example, in Cambodia, you know, our reports have documented police abuse of sex workers by the police in Cambodia. And we're working, you know, we're struggling to reform the police system there and the corruption, and to hold the police accountable. And on the other hand, huge amounts, millions of dollars are flowing into the Cambodia police for anti-trafficking activities, which then they interpret very broadly and are sweeping up a lot of people who haven't been trafficked, who really are just trying to get by and don't really want to end up in jail for it. So the anti-trafficking movement and you know, and its accompanying rhetoric and its accompanying funding is also something that we're watching very closely from a human rights perspective. So that brings us to advocacy. And what do we do about all of this? And I just wanted to, you know, to say what you all know, which is there's a very strong international movement for organizing sex workers, for standing up for their human rights. All of these movements around the world and in the United States are based on the fundamental principle that everyone has human rights, including sex workers. And these groups have taken very different approaches to expressing their human rights demands. And I just wanted to, I brought some examples just because I thought they were neat. For example, this is like a 21-page declaration of the rights of sex workers in Europe that came out of a conference in 2005 in Belgium, and it really is detailed. It's, you know, it's really it addresses, you know, equal protection to the law, health, freedom from slavery, privacy and family life. I mean, it's really very detailed, and it goes through all the treaties that they think apply and everything, and it's really dynamite. You know, it's a formidable legal document, and it's awesome in its own way. And then you have the statement from Sangram, which is an amazing sex workers collective in India, and it has 6 points. And I just want to read these points because I think they're so powerful, and they speak for themselves. Number 1, people have a right to be approached with humility and respect. 2, people have a right to say yes or no to things that concern them. 3, people have the right to reject harmful social norms. 4, people have the right to stand up and change the balance of power. 5, people have the right not to be rescued by the outsiders who neither understand nor respect them. And 6, people have the right to exist how they want to exist. And for them, that's all they need. You know, they will go forward based on this platform. So I guess the advocacy movement now worldwide is, you know, starts here and ends here in a 50-page declaration and has everything else in between. And it's exciting to be part of a group that I think is going to start making its own advocacy statement very soon in many ways. And I'm just really honored to be here, and we just want to be useful. That's our goal. And so we can either, I'm going to turn it over to Robert or Tess to facilitate an open discussion, really, of criminalization, of advocacy, If people want to talk about their condom experience, either in this forum, that's great. I can just take some quick notes, or you can also see me later, and also see me later for some flyers to take back with you so that people can continue to contact us about it. Thanks so much.